Welcome back to round 3. And this video, I'm going to examine 4 recently released horror movies from popular franchises that I believe should not have been made. So, this is just going to be like a laid back video. It's kind of like a similar video that I made last year where I talked about my best friend's exorcism, Hocus Pocus 2, and the Munsters. In this video, I'm going to talk about, get this, Children of the Corn 2023, The Exorcist Believer, Pet Sematary Bloodlines, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. So, all these movies I watched this year, and 3 of them, I found them to be on streaming, and one of them is a theatrical release. So, let's break down each one by one, starting with Children of the Corn 2023. And I watched this movie about like a couple months ago, and this is treated as like a soft remake in a way, but this now features a little girl who is in charge of the Children of the Corn. And there's like this teenage girl who comes to this town and tries to see what's going on. But she's almost at that age where she can be part of the Children of the Corn. So the townspeople talk about all sorts of like financial issues, and it gets kind of boring after a while. But this movie alone, why did you have to make another Children of the Corn movie? Because pretty much none of these are any good at all. But the Children of the Corn in this one decide to like take all the adults hostage and keep them in like a jail cell while gassing them, and then some of them were buried alive in the field, leaving only a few people to survive. This movie was bonkers and all over the place, and it just didn't need to exist. Henceforth, the theme of this video. And not to mention, the ending was laughable. I'm like, really? Because the girl, you think, died, but she comes back as this corn demon thing. I'm like, what? This movie was not good whatsoever, but I just watched it on Shudder one day, and yeah. So I would probably give this Children of the Corn at least a D. It just wasn't that good at all. And those are my thoughts on Children of the Corn 2023. Next up is going to be a couple more thoughts on The Exorcist Believer. And I do have a full review on that channel. But I'm just going to go over this a little bit more briefly because the Exorcist believer, although you ask ourselves why, this movie is just very lazy, and the Ellen Burstyn cameo is just forced. But this movie is like centered around like two girls who get possessed, and they are now waiting to be exorcised. So, nothing really new here, except that this movie is very lazy and really adds nothing to the Exorcist lore. I just don't think that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride were the right creative team to do this. Now, I will say they did a decent job with the Halloween trilogy, but The Exorcist, I don't think so. But I mean, if you do want more of my thoughts on this movie, I do have a full-length review on the channel. So, nothing new to say here. That was a little bit more or the same thing on The Exorcist Believer. The next movie I want to talk about is Pet Sematary Bloodlines. And this was the newest prequel that was released to Paramount Plus a couple weeks ago. And I watched this a couple weeks ago as well. And out of these four movies, this is probably going to be like my second favorite. I mean, all these movies aren't good, but this takes Judd Crandall back to like 1969, and he meets a new girl, which turns out to be his girlfriend, Norma, and he's just trying to get into like the Peace Corps, and his best friend, Timmy Baterman, came back from Vietnam, but it turns out he was killed in action, and his father, David Duchovny, didn't let him go at all. To me, yes, there are parallels to Pet Sematary, but this one just feels like it added on to the story, especially like the flashback sequence in the novel and the movie. It's very small, but I thought that this movie was just fine. I mean, it's not going to be like the new classic to me, but to me, this is like the least made aesthetic for the Pet Sematary story. I mean, the director decided to like add a little bit of her own flavor to the story, and it just didn't work at all. I mean, this is probably like the best looking movie out of the four I'm talking about, but I would say that this one is just okay. I mean, it's not bad, but it's like not the original at all. But I would honestly give this one like a C. So that's my final grade for Pet Sematary Bloodlines. The final movie I have things to say. I ripped the Band-Aid off and finally watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And easily the worst out of the 4 movies that I'm talking about in this video. So, this was a popular children's franchise throughout the 1900s up until today, basically. And it featured Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore, Tigger, Piglet, Owl, and the rabbit and the kangaroo or whatever. But in this particular movie, it's set up as like a slasher. So already a red flag there. So the story goes, Christopher Robin left Winnie and the gang alone as he was going off to college. And Winnie and his friends were starving and fighting the bitter cold temperatures in the 100-acre wood. So they were forced to go to cannibalism, and they ate Eeyore. That is how this movie starts, and it's like an animated sequence. But as the movie goes on, it turns out to be like some hillbilly slasher set in England. This movie was god awful, and the kills were like nothing new. I mean, the kills for one just takes like one hit and then it's a cutaway. So there's practically very to little gore in this movie. Especially the one where the girl in the hot tub, Piglet runs over her head with the car and her eye pops out. That's the kill. So you don't see any like meaty goodness after her head was crushed. And then there's the girl in the pool who gets just whipped by a sledgehammer. Then that's the kill. I'm like, come on, one hit, that's it. I wanted more blood. But Hollywood really struggled with this one bad, because why oh why would you make Winnie the Pooh a horror movie? I don't know. But this might be a first on my channel, and I don't even know if this is actually going to be a grade. But there's nothing else more to say about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, except that it's just your run-of-the-mill slasher. And not to mention, the masks and costumes were terrible. I mean, they were just like masks, and they were obviously big hulking dudes. I'm like, aren't they supposed to be like animals? But anyway, my final grade for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, get this, I'm gonna give this thing an F minus. Yeah. So, no redeeming qualities here whatsoever. And those are my thoughts on 4 recently released horror movies that are pointless. So, I thought this is a very fun video to film, and hope you guys enjoyed it. I have one more video to get out tonight, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys for that one in a minute. Adios, peace, and stay spooky.